The most basic part of digital restoration work may be the little specks and spots that most photos of a certain age have, but the larger rips and tears tend to happen, and a lot of times they tend to happen in the most inconvenient places. Take this image for instance. This large crease-tear combination just so happens to be in a place in the image where a whole lot is going on. One good thing about all this is it isn't in an area that would be even harder to reconstruct, like the face. What we do need to repair here is a small portion of the horse and some harness mostly. Let's zoom out and have a look at the whole picture. I'm using Control or Command and the minus sign. You can see it goes right through the middle, so we just need to repair a little of that area. It's a good idea to start on the smaller end of a rip and a tear. And the tools you use mostly are your patch tool, your clone stamp tool, and if you have Photoshop CS5, your content aware fill. Begin by selecting an area. Keep to the smaller side. If you try to get too big, you're just going to get big smudgy areas. And work just in little pieces. Another hint when using your patch tool is go ahead of yourself with the clone stamp tool and prepare areas. When you do this, it's a good idea to work from the top and the bottom, not just try to make one big sweep. Again, work in little areas and make yourself little bridges that you can then go in and use your patch tool to select the area, and you don't have all that white area around that'll smudge. Just bring it up. Sometimes you'll have to go over the area again and again to fix the areas, and that's okay, to fix the little smudges. That's a really good way to whittle away at the small areas. Now this big area is much the same, just on a larger scale. Again, get your clone stamp tool, select an area, and make a bridge for your other tools. If you try to do the whole thing with your clone stamp tool, you'll probably end up repeating yourself too much, and that's not going to be a good fix. Let's just do a couple quick bridges here. Try not to make your area that you're making your bridge in too large.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's not a good idea to go in too large an area.
How are you? Okay.
Get your patch tool,
Let me look and see what my
select the area, and bring it up.
calendar is.
And that's a much better way to fix it, and you can go back and fix any little smudges that occur this way. Larger rips and tears take more patience and care than the small ones,
Well,
especially when they happen in detailed, inconvenient areas. But attention to the surrounding areas and details can make the job
very
easier.
small one.
Take your time, take breaks as needed, and whittle away at the large areas to make the big stuff smaller.
Oh.
There are scratches on an image, and then there are scratches that go on forever through an image, especially when they're through highly detailed areas like patterns or eyes. The repair can be pretty
So they
detailed.
called she called
First thing you
Diane
need to
to
do
take
with your image before working on any of them is duplicate it by
Oh,
using
okay,
Control
yeah.
on a PC, Command on a Mac, plus J.
Mhm.
That way you'll always have your original image to go back and see how your work is faring. This is a great public domain image from the Library of Congress photographic collection. You can see that this large scratch, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here so you can see the whole thing. This scratch starts on one end and goes through into this patterned area on the vest. Let's zoom back in with Control or Command and the plus sign to about 200%. This kind of detailed damage, especially right over here on the vest, is a good fit for the patch tool. Unlike a large rip that has a lot of white space, you can just take a small space, go over here and select the patch tool, take a small space through the pattern, and drag it down, keeping your lines aligned. You can also do that here in this area with the shadow, which is just a line on a photograph after all. Bring it down, and that's a nice repair. If you have Photoshop CS4 and before, the patch tool is probably your best bet with this kind of work. If you have Photoshop CS5, you can always try the Content Aware Spot Healing brush. Let's go over to the toolbar again, your spot healing brush tool, and make sure your content aware radial button's ticked. And we're going to go through this area right here, and just with the content aware you can drag it more than you could with your regular spot healing brush, which would smudge. With this you can kind of drag it through and it does a pretty good job. Now if you have smudgy areas like you do right here from the dragging, you'll want to go back over to your patch tool and do the same as we did before in the pattern. And drag it up, keeping them aligned to clean up the areas. It's rare that you're going to have one tool to do the whole job. You're more than likely going to use multiple tools, patch, healing brush, even the clone stamp, and you're going to clean up the areas if they don't do such a good job with another tool. Working with multiple tools is always going to be your best bet. On edges like this, that's where your clone stamp tool can come in very handy. Use your alter option, select the area, and you can clean up that edge and make it nice and sharp. Large areas of damage can require smaller, detailed repairs. If you start trying to work fast and repair large areas at a time, the results can be smudged and nothing like you want your work to look like. A little bit of time, a lot of patience, will all pay off in the end. Unless a photo is stored in a very secure way, laying flat in an archival folder or box, and has been treated very carefully its whole life, creases can and often will happen. Our mission is to repair them so no one would ever know they had anything but the best storage facility. First thing you'll want to do on your image is duplicate the original layer, Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, plus J. One thing that'll make your life easier in a situation where, like this, you have some major discoloration in areas, like this very yellow streak, is to use a black and white adjustment filter to bring out a channel where the discoloration could be less evident. Go to the bottom of the Layers panel and select the Create a New Fill or Adjustment Layer button and choose Black and White. Start by going through the channels to see in which one the dark streak is less, and in this case, it's in the red channel. Control or Command E to add the adjustment to the layer below. This will now be your working layer over your original layer. You can add a little color tone back in later and probably something a lot more attractive than that yellow cast. Now let's select the Zoom tool and zoom in on the crease. The trick with creases is that usually one side is a different tone than the other due to the light from the scanner catching on the bend of the photo. You need to blend them together for a seamless look. Especially in an open area, like the sky for instance, I'd recommend using the patch tool. Let's go over and select that from the toolbar, and then select an area of the sky and drag it to one side or the other. Just by dragging, we've blended those areas in just a bit. Let's go get another and move it to the other area. And again, that's a pretty good blend. But what you'll want to do is after you're done with a pretty good space, select the area again that you've gone over and then bring it over for a better blend. When you get into the areas that are more detailed, then you may need to change your tools up. I'm going to zoom in a little closer with the Zoom tool and go to this area at the very top of the head. This isn't going to be a good candidate for the patch tool because it curves. You can either use the healing brush, the clone stamp tool, or the Content Aware Spot Healing Brush in CS5, or more likely a combination of tools. I'm going to start off with a quick pass of the Content Aware Spot Healing Brush by going to the toolbar, Spot Healing Brush, making sure Content Aware is checked, and then just go through a quick pass. You see that followed the contours of the head pretty well. If I want to clean that up, I can go down to the clone stamp tool. You can adjust the brush size with your open and close bracket tools. Don't use an overly large brush. Hold down Alt or Option, Select an area, and you can clean that up just a bit. If you have a jagged area that there's a noticeable difference between the two, say this little area right here, I'm going to zoom in a little closer. This area right here looks a little jagged. You can always go down to your blur tool, lower your brush size, you don't want it too big, and go over there, and that blends in those jagged areas. Once you get your very detailed areas finished, you can go back and grab your patch tool and continue down the crease. Switch to other tools as you need or want. It's always better to use multiple tools. It's very rare that one tool is going to work through the whole image. Let's zoom back out and look at a quick before and after to see how that crease is looking. That's a pretty good blend. Now, if you want that color back, or any color at all, you can simply go in, bring your original up, sample a color, have a new blank layer on top, fill it in with Alt or Option backspace for your foreground color, go in and change your layer blend mode, scroll through them to see which might work best for you. In this case, overlay does a pretty good job. Bring down the opacity a little if you'd like, just to bring some color back in from the black and white. And you just continue along your whole crease until you get it all fixed. When creases go through the entire photo and through detailed areas in particular, they need to be worked on close up with many different tools and adjustments to get the best result. With a little work and care, one would be hard pressed to know there was ever a mark there to begin with.